Good morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on a magnificent Monday. I hope that you had a great Independence Day celebration. I hope that you are ready to start this week with joy in your heart and a desire to serve the Father. What a great way to start the week. But right now, join me in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. Paul is talking about these weapons of our warfare because we're not fighting a battle against flesh and blood. We're fighting a battle against the spiritual powers in the heavenly places. That's what he says in his letter to the church at Ephesians. And here he says in verse 4, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, not fleshly, not earthly, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds." Now, let's talk about that for just a minute. What are strongholds in your life? Strongholds are those places where Satan has authority. So, well, preacher, I didn't think Satan had authority over believers. The only authority he has over believers is the authority that we give him. How do we give him that? By giving in to temptation, by participating in things we shouldn't participate in, by listening to music we shouldn't listen to, watching movies that we shouldn't watch, reading books that we shouldn't read. In those ways that we start living fleshly lives, carnal lives, doing things that satisfy the appetites and the desires of the flesh rather than the Spirit of God, that's how strongholds get started. And it doesn't start as a stronghold, it starts as a toehold, just some little thing that you play around with, and then it turns into a foothold, and then it turns into a stronghold, a full-fledged fortress in our lives where Satan has reign over us. It's addiction. It is bondage to sin. That's exactly what it is. Say, well, I didn't think believers could do that. Well, you can if you give in to Satan. That's why so many believers are living less than joyful lives, less than powerful lives, because they have given in over and over and over again, and now they don't know what to do about it. Well, listen up. Paul says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. What does it do? Casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. You know what you ought to be doing. You know that you're not doing it. You know what you shouldn't be doing. You know that you are doing it. Trust God. Go to Him in prayer. Maybe spend some time fasting, studying the Word, and letting God speak to your heart about the things that need to change in your life, and then ask Him to give you the strength to do it. But here's the key: bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Now, we sometimes just read right over that, and we don't realize how important it is. But that's where the strongholds begin, with a thought in our mind. Oh man, it would sure feel good to do that. Oh, I would enjoy that. And we start thinking about it. And pretty soon, and I've used this illustration before, we're like moths and flames. We try to see how close we can come without getting caught, without doing it. And ultimately, we're going to get burned because we're not as strong as we think we are. And when we start thinking about these things, we end up going headfirst into them when they become a part of our thought process. Paul says we have to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. What does that mean? Every thought that pops into your head, you have to say, is this what Jesus would have me to do? And based on that, you decide, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that. That's what it means to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ, knowing what He's called you to do, knowing what He's called you to be, knowing that He gives you the power to resist every temptation or the opportunity to escape every temptation. And listen to what he says, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. You're going to stand firm in the Word of God. You're going to trust in what He's given you. You're going to relish the victory. Oh, it's such a sweet feeling when God gives you the victory. But then you're going to stand for what is right and stand against what is wrong. Think about that today. Be blessed. I'll see you back here tomorrow.